Good morning. It is Tuesday, April 1st, but this isn't an April Fool's joke. We actually have Brian Kramer on the show. Whoa. This is the Automotive State of the Union. I'm Paul J. Daly. This is Kyle Mountsier, and pretty soon, the non-April Fool's joke is showing up. OG troublemaker, Brian Kramer from Cars Commerce, but originally from the block.
Because I bet you Brian Kramer has pulled off some of the most ridiculous April Fool's pranks in automotive, like legitimately in automotive. We can see him off screen, just so you know. He is smiling so cheekily, it's scary.
Oh my goodness, that's so true. Well, it's April Fool. You know, I don't even know if our team had anything teed up for April 1st Day. We went all in the last year. Nathan, do we have anything going, or are we just too busy for April Fool's Day?
You can't tell if you have something going. That's not how that works.
I kind of, you know it or you don't.
Paul, if we did have something going, it would probably be trying to pull the wool over your eyes, so why would I tell you?
That would not be difficult to do at all. That's the lowest barrier of entry for an April Fool's joke.
Although someone sort of randomly kind of associated with the ASOTU community dropped a really great one today. Will Guidara release a new book?
Oh yeah,
Unreasonable Hospitality, Hospitality, how robots are better at hospitality than humans.
That's really good.
It was really good.
I wish he should actually do the GPT prompt that he put in the post, because it would be really interesting to see what GPT comes back with, like, you know, how to be unreasonably hospitable. You know, it would probably be pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
To robots. How would be? A lot of things coming up. First of all, obviously, you know what's coming. ASOTU presented by Reynolds and Gubagoo is coming in so hot. We're almost. Are we under 40 days? Not yet. Almost there.
Almost.
Pitch tank. Startup booths. Do we have any startup booths left?
I think we got 2 left.
That's it.
And on Pitch Tank, you got to get your pitches in. We've only got a few days left. If you are looking to pitch at ASOTUCon and you want to have your name in the hat to try and get there, ASOTUcon.com/pitch tank. You can submit your video right there.
Yeah. So, all right. I think we need to bring Brian Kramer in. Because we're obviously going to talk about tariffs, because that's the thing we're talking about.
Everybody's talking about tariffs.
And Brian has a little insight, but Brian, come on in. Bring him in. Brian Kramer. Brian, you're such an OG part of this community. I don't think people even know.
Oh, yeah.
We go way back.
Like to the beginning.
Before you guys were even together.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
He just pulled that one, Kyle.
What a jerk.
So
I watched the initial intro of the two of you. It was the digital dealer, I think, right?
Yeah. That was the first time we did something together. Was at that digital dealer. You were there on that little stage in the round, and everything.
Moment it happened.
That place got sideways real fast.
That was
Eric
amazing.
and Tiffany was pointing fingers. Glenn Lundy was telling everyone they weren't gonna exist anymore. It was wild.
Yeah. I remember Jared Kilway, he goes, there's something going on there. Because I wouldn't be surprised if those two spin something up.
Yep. And here we go.
Here it is.
And here we are. And you're working for corporate America now. Who would have thought?
Right? It's crazy.
I know. The PR department is probably close by with their tasers on just right and left side of you on the camera right now. I'm just kidding. They're not. They're the best people ever. Okay. Tariffs. We're talking about it nonstop. You can't escape a tariff conversation if you're in the auto industry, whether it's on social media, reading a newsletter, whatever. They're set to go into effect and potentially stick this time on April 3rd, right? So
2 days.
2 days from now, so Thursday. Automakers sent representatives to Washington to lobby directly now with the Trump administration, arguing the tariffs on parts will drive up costs by billions of dollars. Meanwhile, OEMs are warning dealers that vehicle pricing could change. Hyundai telling its dealers, quote, current vehicle pricing is not guaranteed and may be subject to change for units wholesaled after April 2nd. Wow. That's tomorrow. No April Fool's joke. Here to talk tariffs and how dealers should be approaching the next weeks and months is our good friend, Brian Kramer.
Today wouldn't have been the day to roll out a tariff program. I think that at least
that would have been messed up.
I mean, that would have been a thing. But now Executive Vice President of Car Commerce and GM of AccuTrade, your phone is probably blowing up with dealers asking you the questions, how much should I pay for this trade-in?
Yeah, it's already been happening probably 5 times this morning, but it was all, I passed out last night. I wake up this morning to all of this. Yeah.
All right, so like you're dialed in. You know all about what's happening in wholesale values. You spend a lot of time on the ground with dealers. You have a lot of thoughts about this. You've been publishing and are about to publish some more pieces on tariffs and comparing it to other situations where kind of buying frenzies or fear has started to drive the market. So give us your overview.
So, well, kind of like you and I talked about as you were thinking about selling your vehicle. I compared it to tulip mania. Tulip mania back in the 1600s is when tulips were selling for, certain bulbs. If you could propagate a certain strain of tulips in Holland, they were going for more than houses were, because everybody was going in this, like toilet paper during COVID. But as everybody's doing addendums and all that stuff, a lot of the things that are going on right now at this current moment are psychological, because there's a lot of vehicles that aren't even going to be affected. But I will say that what's done to consumer behavior, I just was talking to Brian Burton from Germain Toyota. They just had a 21 cars Sunday, which they never sold 20 cars on a Sunday, used only, and 22 yesterday. So those days they're pacing on an all-time record used car month. Problem is, with that sales velocity, everybody's not backfilling at the same rate in order to fill it. So what are they doing? Well, we got to get cars. We need inventory. I don't know what the deal is, but we can't have an empty lot. So now you're just seeing these values go up and up and up unreasonably. I mean, right now, a 2023 4Runner is at the auction is going for more than it did for MSRP in 2023 with 20,000 miles on it.
Whoa. What?
Oh, yeah. And
That's
you're seeing that, right?
unbelievable.
My daughter's RAV4 has gone up $3,200 in the last 90 days in value on a 2022 RAV4. So there, at some point, this is going to pop, and there's going to have to be some sort of, affordability piece in the bubble. So I would tell every single dealer that you can't control what happens in all this mania, but what you can control is how many trades you get on your transactions. So 70% of consumers have a trade-in, but the average for dealers, new and used, is like 35%, 43% on new, 28% on used. They got to make sure that they're asking about the trade. Only 26% of our leads and everybody's leads have a trade-in attached to the initial lead. So instead of just going for the appointment, hey, do you have a trade that you'd also like this to add to? Yeah. And that way you can work payments and that sort of thing. But I think a lot of people don't ask that question.
Yeah, I think the poignant part here is for dealers that are struggling to find that inventory, they're going to race to the auction because it's the lowest barrier of entry, right? It's like high volume, quick purchase, but paying up for that. If you can focus on trades and street purchases, you have the opportunity to find the right vehicle at the right price, and have that vehicle quickly on the lot so that you can turn it around while the frenzy's still hot, right? Because we don't know. If all of a sudden tariffs don't happen on Thursday, all of this energy is now moot and you've overpaid for cars too high. Also, if anything changes, right? Maybe the tariffs aren't so high, or maybe there's more, incentive for certain manufacturers or things like that. We don't know. And so consumer frenzy is actually demanding us be more resolved in our purchasing behavior, I think, is what I'm hearing.
And I talked to somebody yesterday that purchased 150 used cars in one shot.
Goodness.
And that's what I would highly advise not to do, because they were worried that, cars are going to run out. I can buy them at today's prices versus future prices and hoard them all. And there's holding costs. There's going to be depreciation. Maybe there's parts availability, but that's another thing, right? And so everybody's saying, well, this is going to affect automakers, and I'm sure it will. But I think that the ones that are really going to be affected, you might not see it for a minute, but it depends on how long this thing runs out for. I don't see it going for more than 90 days personally, but that's my complete gut assumption. I have no data to back that up. But at the end of the day, the tier 2 suppliers and the parts suppliers, there's so many that are like Chinese and Korean aftermarket parts. That's what's really going to disrupt us on the used car side. Speed to market. You're not going to be able to get cars from the shop or get reasonable prices. And there's going to be, when you're looking for certain parts or there's open recalls, knowing all that data as you're taking that car in, can I even retail this car? Am I going to step all over this car and then find out that it's going to be 3 months before I can actually get the repair done? Knowing those pieces. And then I would say, I'm going to do a shameless plug here. Everybody should be using the cars.com. And I've been sending it to everybody, cars.com American Made Index. And that ranks the most American built cars to the least American built cars. And that way you can at least, and a bunch of dealers have been working with, they've got that and they've got it laminated right at the sales desk so they can sit there and look to see, am I going to discount this car?
Wow.
Right. Because if you, I was with some Stellantis dealers that are really dialed in out in LA, and they're looking at it and they go, look, they have to check with the owner if they're going to discount a car that's not American made, because they know the supply is about to dry up.
The supply is going to dry up, and they know that like reconditioning that car. Do they are they fixed percentaging it? Right? Like, hey, if reconditioning costs are this, I can estimate it's probably gonna be another 25% on my reconditioning costs, and using that to inform their discount.
Not yet. That's the first I've heard of that. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, why wouldn't you go into
just my thought.
Your IMS dashboard and your valuation metrics, and instead of changing where you value the vehicle, change where you price your reconditioning costs and bump those 25%, because parts are going to be the quickest affected item in the list, right? Yeah, some of the manufacturers are going to start wholesale bumps on new cars, but that's only going to trickle down to used cars over 60 to 90 days. But you'll see the immediate impact, because time from like port to in stock to on a car in your like recon process is way quicker than the retail process. And so why not start thinking about that? Like if that happens on Wednesday, think about how your recon process is going to change. I think is going to help you buy smarter.
You guys just gave me an idea. I mean, I've been talking to our analyst team and our valuation team 3 times a day, multiple times a day. They were pricing cars all weekend, Saturday, Sunday, because the market, just as soon as we're adjusting them up for the most part, right? There's still a few that are not in that space, but our manual adjustments are the most that I've ever seen. And typically it's just on exotics, 100,000 mile cars, EVs. Yep. After Elon Musk changes MSRPs $10,000, but now everything's happening so quickly. And the interesting thing is that you can't look at market day supply right now. Market day supply is a 45-day look back. We're actually going back and manually trying to see what's the last 7 days sales velocity.
Yep.
And in using a blend of the two to then look forward, and then also days on market, because we see the days on market or days since last sale is going down at the fastest rate I've ever seen, while the market day supply is remaining steady, right? So when that happens, the prices, that's literally the recipe for when prices are going to go up even more.
The comparison actually, and Brian, I'll give you another one, and the one that I used during COVID, which was super important, both on the downturn and the upswing, was a 14 to 7 day delta comparison, right? So instead of just looking at the 7 day, look at your 14 day market day supply, look at your 14 day price to market, 7 day price to market and day supply, look at the delta between, and that's how you can tell how quickly the market is moving. That gives you a Saturday and a Saturday to compare basically how the market is moving and how fast those day supply and valuations are changing.
And if dealers do that, I think they'll realize that, because there's two boats, right? There's the panic, the tulip mania type thing where I need cars. I'm going to go buy 150 cars yesterday and bring them all in on one truckload, where you're jamming up your speed to market, your internal recon team, your salespeople. You don't have the BDC to handle that many calls and all the things that come along with that. But then you got the other side that I see almost more people falling into, that are, it's almost like the tortoise and the hare. Hey, I'm not worried about that. We'll figure that out when it happens. There's plenty of inventory. There's no shortage of inventory. And that's true based on a 45-day look back. But that is absolutely not true based on what you're talking about.
On a 7 day. Absolutely not. And there's a whole other side of this conversation that, obviously the things that we're talking about are on the sales side, but on the fixed operations side, there's a whole other gamut of things and they're actually more consumer facing immediately, because there are many more transactions, many more people walking into a service department now, potentially going to be surprised by higher costs because parts are going to be costed higher. So how do you have, you were a GM for a long time. You're on the acquisition side now, but you're GM for a long time. How are you approaching the service department communication with customers as prices potentially are going up because parts are going up?
So I would say, just like this morning, I got a text message, and it would be on the repair order, right? So I always look outside the car business for things like that. And this morning, the person that handles my pool just sent me a text. Hey, by the way, chlorine supplies went up. The price just went up, and he sat there and gave me a whole synopsis of what's going on in the market. And I just sent it to my wife. I go, what do you want to do? She goes, what choice do we have?
Yeah.
And I think that you just have to educate people as to what's going on. It's not like somebody hasn't heard of that.
Just get ahead of it.
Yeah. And just have it on your ROs, have it on, everything. So, and make sure, the other thing too is not just with fixed, with the whole tariff situation, I would be communicating with the parts department. which most GMs don't normally go back there. That's normally a forbidden area,
And
That guy's been here longer than the building.
Right.
I don't talk to him. Right.
Right? You're like, what are you going to talk about? What's your thoughts on gravity-fed battery racks?
Yeah.
You want to talk to us about some really fast-moving parts. But as you're going back there, making sure to communicate with them so you're controlling the narrative, so their imagination is not running wild on whatever it is that they're thinking about, right? And pick your parts manager's brain and say, hey, what am I not thinking about? What should we? I'm talking to Adam Aarons yesterday. He goes, we went from a normal 60-day parts run on everything. We took it up to 120 days. And then I think one of Adam's OEMs cut him off and said, no, you can't go loading up on, everybody's trying to load up on parts, right? And so how many dealers are doing that?
They just become the wholesaler, get the benefit of the market rate up, bump up.
Which is what I did in 2009 with Cadillac. I hope everything. And then when they turned off a bunch of dealers, I was wholesaling them.
You had all the parts.
Oh yeah. Well, no, all the cars. We're doing it on new cars. I took all the declined inventory and then ended up wholesaling it later, which, that could work or not work, could have blown up my face. But with service and parts, I would be more worried about the aftermarket parts effect, because now people can't go to an independent service provider. The aftermarket parts that are typically a lot cheaper are not going to be readily available, and they might not be getting billed. They're going to be taxed. If it's a reciprocal tax, they'll be taxed 100% out of China. So now that's going to be probably one of the most disruptive things about this tariffs is that.
Well, speaking of things out of China.
Stop. Segue.
Time.
Here's a good one after the crazy, with an April 5th deadline looming. So just a couple days after that, the rest of the world is paying attention to ByteDance because they must sell TikTok's U.S. segment or face a full ban. President Trump is optimistic that a deal is on the horizon. The app, with 170 million U.S. users, was deemed a national security risk over data sharing concerns and was originally set to shut down on January 19th. A wide range of potential buyers includes Blackstone's Perplexity, MrBeast, and Project Liberty. Project Liberty claims it has a $20 billion in investor commitments for a deal and made an offer ahead of the January deadline. President Trump said there's tremendous interest in TikTok.
Okay, so I mean, I don't know what Brian Kramer is going to do with the majority of his income stream if TikTok goes away. I don't know what he's going to do about that. He's going to have to get back to being a dealer or something like that. But this has been coming and going for a very long time. I think that the fact that you could not download TikTok from the App Store for that period, I don't know what it was, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it was. I think everyone understands that there is a real world where TikTok could be shut down. When before that, I think everyone's like, you can't shut down TikTok. It's an inalienable right, but it's not. So I think that people are taking this very seriously. I do think a buyer is going to come forth. I think President Trump's position on TikTok seemed to get very favorable as the election cycle was going and his embrace of new media. So I do think somebody's going to come up and buy this. I don't think it's going to be a big surprise when it happens. Like, I think some of the people in this, it talks about Blackstone, MrBeast, Project Liberty. I think all of these are reasonable acquirers for the U.S. business. But I mean, the data and the algorithm that comes with this are, at the very top of the pile. I don't know, Brian. Do you have a TikTok?
You got TikTok?
I do.
He's like, I use it every day for used car acquisitions. People trying to sell their cars.
So I'll tell you an interesting story. George Saliba, you guys know, he was at ASOTU last year, talking about this. Back then, at ASOTU 2024, he was, he's a power user of AccuTrade and Dealer Club. But back then, he was acquiring, or he was getting, I think 300 or 400 leads a month, which I thought was an insane number. And I'm like, who is this guy and how is he doing it? And then you told me, he's big on social media, YouTube. So I started looking into it and befriended him and started learning, he's reverse mentoring me now on this. But he's getting over 1,000 organic leads a month of We'll Buy Your Car leads. So he's, as everybody's in this drought of, I can't source enough cars, he literally has more business than he can handle. And anybody can watch his channel, but as you watch it, he doesn't have to agree to everything. He's not begging everybody, hey, I need cars, I need to go to the auction, I need to do this. No, he's like, hey, no, it's not worth that, and I'm not paying that. And he's got
car, right price, right time. He's
10 people behind him.
Yep.
Right.
Wow. That's a real interesting point, and I think we see that across the board in social media, in the auto industry, and we can kind of see this getting massive traction. in the last, I would even say, call it the last 18 months, as people are waking up to what a lot of the retail world has known for the last 5 years, which is kind of typical, right? Big industry, moves slow. I think we're going to see more of this adoption go forward. I don't think TikTok is going anywhere. Actually, after we get a US buyer, that might just be what I need to get on TikTok.
Maybe I'll be in. Wow.
I know. I don't know.
Maybe we'll do it.
I thought it was going to be Kevin O'Leary, but I will say this one last thing.
Okay,
the reason why George is doing so well is because he's so transparent. You see exactly what you can expect. There's no question as to what that experience is going to be like, right, wrong, or indifferent, and that's the magic of his deal.
That is the magic. Brian, thank you so much for sharing some of your time with us. Thanks to our friends at Cars Commerce for letting you come on and just empowering you to help dealers do what they need to do. And Tariff is coming. We'll be here talking about it soon. Talk to you later.
See you.